We have 1 week left in the fantasy regular season. That means it is time to start prepping for your fantasy playoffs if you haven't been doing so the last week or so already. So today we're going to talk tips and tricks to win your fantasy league, whether it's redraft, whether it is Dynasty. We're going to get meta. We're going to get conceptual. So before we get into it, guys, if you like what we're doing here at DLF, you like these types of videos, subscribe to the channel, right? If you have questions, you have comments, drop it down below as well. All right, let's jump in. First tip here, it applies to redraft, it applies to Dynasty, and that is look ahead on your waivers if you're playing the streaming game. And by that I mean if you are streaming quarterback, you are streaming defense. Do not wait until the week of to go and add your guy. That means you're competing potentially with the rest of your league mates. You know, maybe some other league mates, right, are looking ahead as well. So you're fighting for guys in week 15 and 16 right now. That's fine. But as long as you are playing the game, right, and that is trying to predict who's a good streamer, who is a good option to plug into your lineup when it matters, that's the big thing here. Right? You're already one step ahead of the majority of fantasy players. Now, if you're actively adding those guys, you're 2 steps ahead. Maybe you're 3 steps ahead, right? So if we're talking defense, let's look ahead to week 15, and then we'll look ahead to 16 and 17 as well. In week 15, there's 2 defenses that are pretty widely available in redraft. Dynasty, if you have defense, get rid of it. Stop playing Dynasty with defenses. But anyways, the Packers, right? They're playing the Rams in week 15. That might be Baker Mayfield's first start on a team that has no weapons with a terrible quarterback in Baker Mayfield. The Packers, while not spectacular, are probably a great streaming option. Go ahead and add them now. On top of that, you also have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 15, they get Carolina, right? TJ Watt is back. He's healthier. That is a huge difference maker, especially from fantasy points perspective in terms of sacks. You know, just rushed throws that turn into interceptions, which the Steelers have a ton of. That is a huge help as well. So Pittsburgh, another week 15 streaming option. And if you're looking for one that you can stream in weeks 16 and 17, take a look at the Los Angeles Chargers. If you have an extra spot, right? Let's say you already have Green Bay and you are locked into the playoffs. Play in week 14, who cares? Stream them week 15. You can then pivot to the Chargers in week 16 and 17. So those are a couple defenses to take a look at that we know have soft schedules coming up here. Now, let's take a look at the quarterbacks. Like we just said, it's very similar. You want to get a week, 2 weeks ahead of your opponent here and add your streaming quarterback if that's how you're going into the playoffs. Mac Jones against the Raiders in week 15. That's viable. The Raiders defense has been porous, and I think that's the best way you can kind of talk about them. Mac Jones is also not a great quarterback, but again, in streaming, you're playing the matchup here. Another option is Matt Ryan. Now, Matt Ryan, again, objectively gross, not great. Neither is Minnesota's defense, though. Minnesota's defense recently has been struggling heavily. So if you're looking and you're desperate, right, you're in a 16-team league and you're streaming and you made the playoffs, Matt Ryan is a viable streaming option as well. And then to close it out, we also have Mike White, who offers you 2 weeks of streaming potential, right? He gets Detroit first, who, as of late, has been better, but it's still Detroit. I mean, they are surging. We get that. Mike White has had 2 productive games back-to-back. It's kind of a rock and a hard place here. So I'm happy to play Mike White and assume this Detroit defense kind of returns to what we've seen, you know, the first 10 weeks of the season. And then week 16, he also gets Jacksonville. We all know about Jacksonville. Mike White, if he's still the starter then, potentially has 2-week streaming potential for you. Our next tip here, and this applies to Dynasty, it applies to redraft. Basically, whatever fantasy format you're playing, you need to be doing this, and that is adding handcuff running backs. That means the guys that aren't necessarily starters right now, if you're not familiar with the term handcuff, it is a backup running back. You want these guys on your rosters because at this point in the season, running backs going down, if they're on a poor team, they can just get shut down for the season. If teams have playoff hopes and are comfortably in the playoff race, they may sit a running back for an extended period of time, which is where you get these league winners like we had last season with Rashad Penny, right? He pops up because of injuries, and now he's a superstar, right? You have these guys every single season. Well, I'm talking guys like James Cook, who honestly isn't even a handcuff, just should be rostered at this point as a potential flex play. I mean, we have Dontrell Hilliard. Him and Hassan Haskins, should Derrick Henry go down, that gets very interesting down the stretch here on a team that is committed to running the ball. Hilliard is the priority waiver ad there if you're looking at a handcuff, so keep an eye on him, and then Hassan Haskins would pop up as next man up, maybe the 1B in an offense. Another running back here that's still widely available, JaMycal Hasty with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, we saw Etienne miss the majority of a game 2 weeks ago. Hasty performed in a big way. He picked up a ton of targets. He had a lot of carries. JaMycal Hasty and Darrell Henderson there will be an interesting duo, but again, I think Hasty is the guy. Another one that in Dynasty, you're well aware of him. In redraft, you might not be. It is Zamir White, the backup runner, not necessarily running back, but backup runner to Josh Jacobs. Him and Amir Abdullah would form a formidable 1-2 punch in this Raiders offense that has been very committed to running the ball. So should Jacobs go down, Zamir White most likely finds RB2 value, down the stretch here. Another, dynamic 1-2 punch, heaven forbid it happens, Jordan Mason and Tyrion Davis-Price. If CMC goes down, this is an offense that will still continue to check the ball down, especially with Brock Purdy at quarterback now, and that means Jordan Mason, Tyrion Davis-Price could be huge benefactors down the stretch should something happen to CMC. Our third move here, and this one is just a pure concept, when you are setting your lineups, whether it's Dynasty, whether it is redraft in the playoffs, ask yourself one question, and this is what I do for literally every lineup. Does this lineup pass the stupid test? And by that I mean, do you feel dumb if you lose? Like, are you getting too in your head? Are you trying to get too contextual with your lineups? Are you making a potentially stupid decision that you're going to regret? Now, again, someone may be a great play on paper, but your head tells you to go with, player B instead of player A. You play player A and you lose. You now feel dumb for the entire offseason because it cost you your matchup. It's really just kind of a head game thing, and are you going to regret playing somebody over a different player? Think about that. You have to live with your own decisions, so if you don't think it's stupid, go ahead and make that lineup decision. And our final move, our tip, our trick here is to go ahead and cut unnecessary depth, to go ahead and add those streaming quarterbacks and defenses, to add those handcuffed running backs. When I'm talking unnecessary depth, I'm talking about the wide receiver 5 on your team that you're never going to play. The backup quarterback that has a terrible playoff schedule and you're no longer going to stream, right? Those are the types of guys you're most likely, barring catastrophe, not going to play them. Don't roster them, right? Like, guys to me that jump off the page with this in 10, 12-team leagues, Tyler Boyd. You probably are never going to start because Jamar Chase is back and Tyler Boyd is aggressively average. Go ahead and cut him. Who cares? Go ahead and add a handcuff running back because the upside is significantly more. So unnecessary depth, get rid of it. Add your streamers, add your handcuffs. This is how you win come December and January in the fantasy playoffs. All right, guys, that is all I have for you. Again, if you like what we're doing here at DLF, subscribe to the channel. If you have questions, you have comments, you want, just playoff help, drop it all down below. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.